This is what a beautiful theater this is. You guys have a jewel of a system. Okay. This ain't nothing. I don't know. What's the last show that was in here? Does anybody remember?
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. You mean the ones that were like on Saturday morning? I'm just a bill. Sure, I remember. Well, I'm old.
So I guess we're here to answer some questions.
Absolutely, and I'll just start off by saying, how did you guys get involved in the show?
I think you should take it first because Richard actually was on the show before.
I was, and that's an hour-long story.
Let's hear the clip notes.
Okay, clip notes. Well, I was an actor in New York, and I went out to actually Holland, Michigan to do a summer stock. And I met somebody there. I worked with a director there that then called me a few years later to do something in Indiana. And I went to Indiana for like $100 a week stipend. And that's where I met Matt Williams, David Bigfazian, and Carmen Finestra, who were the creators of the show, and their company was called Wind Dancer. And so many years later, I find out about the audition at traffic school.
You never know when you're going to get your
Most
break.
people don't remember what traffic school is. This was before online traffic school, where you had to sit there for 8 hours. And I sat next to this woman who was an agent. She told me that these guys were doing an audition for Home Improvement. So all this stuff happened, and I still didn't get the job. They, when I called them up, they said, well, we've already cast it with another guy by the name of Stephen Tobolowsky. And Stephen Tobolowsky was in a movie you guys have probably seen. He was in Groundhog Day. He played Ned.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's who was going to be Tim's assistant, Glenn. Well, Stephen got a movie and couldn't do the pilot, so Carmen calls me and goes, do you still have that beard? We'd like you to fill in, and we know you're a good guy, and we just want you to fill in for the pilot. Not for the show, just for the pilot, because Stephen got a movie. And I went, oh, absolutely, I am very cool with that. And that's how they changed the name of Tim's assistant from Glenn to Al. They took away most of his dialogue. So that's why, the first few episodes I'm just like sweeping in the background and stuff like that. And I thought I was only going to do the pilot. And that's the short version of how I got this job. I will say that the corner that I got that traffic ticket is the corner of the agent who I sat next to in traffic school. So there was a destiny there. There was something going on that was out of my control.
And Debbie, you were a guest star on the show before you were a regular, right? With a different character?
Yes, I was Kiki von Furstenwell in Shine Law.
You still got that.
And I asked for an autograph on a night that he promised his wife not to look at women.
Yeah, like that could happen.
So I did. I came in and I worked for a week. I hadn't seen the show, but I had a great week. We all became really good friends, and I really enjoyed myself, and I left. And about a year later, I saw a breakdown saying the Debbie Dunning type, but not Debbie Dunning. I'm like, why not me? I do her really good. So I asked my agent at the time, which I didn't actually have an agent. I asked my print modeling agent, and she's like, they just don't want to see you. You were already on the show. Later, they hadn't found me because that's what they were looking for. And Richard said, well, just bring her back in here. Let's just bring her back in. So I got a call from Janelle Dunn, and she said, come like you were. Well, I was decked out. I mean, I had the girls up, and I had the mixed in, and I was all sexy. So I came to this audition. I walked in the room with a bunch of girls in, tool clothes. I was like, and she looks at me and she just goes, I'm like, you said to come how I was. She goes, no, how you really were in real life. And I said, well, I'm going to sit here and go in an audition. She's like, we don't have time for it. We're probably just going to cut the character. And I'm like, look, I can do this. And I went in and auditioned, and she was kind of disappointed. And I said, let me come back tomorrow. Am I going too fast for you over there? Just want to make sure. So I came in, even though she told me not to the next day, and she said, we don't really have time to see you. I said, I'll just wait till they get out of there. And she went in and talked to them, and I went in and I did the audition. And I thought it was just for another week on the show because I had not seen anything but the show that I was in, the episode that I was in. And Pamela wasn't there that week, so I didn't know what the Tool-Time Girl was. After that, she came in and she dismissed the room and she said, sit still, little missy. And I was like, oh, cool, I got another week on this show, which was great because it felt like family. I went down to wardrobe, and this is when I discovered that I'd be there more than next week. She started fitting me for clothes, the more clothes. I said, I think I'm just going to be here for the week. She goes, oh no, you'll be here for a while. And then that was it. I was there for the next 7 years. So when people say, how long have you been there? I said, I've been there since they started. I was there the first year, and then every year after that. So it was one of those things where I was just like, thank you, God, once again. It was answered.
Patricia and Earl and the boys much?
Yeah, they would bring Al into the family part of it every once in a while. But early on, Tim was kind of like, well, why would I hang out with this guy? He's not going to be one of my friends. and I guess the people who had the purse string said, well, yeah, but it's cheaper to have him there instead of hiring another actor, I guess. I don't know. But eventually they kind of brought Al more and more into the thing. One of the first times Al left the Tool Time set was when Tim and he went ice fishing. Do you remember the ice fishing episode? Well, that was one of the episodes where all of a sudden Tim and I are outside the set of Tool Time, and we're not doing anything different. It's almost like it's a Tool Time. And I went to the writers, and this is early on, before I could speak writer. So it was really a wonderful breakthrough to be able to ask for what I wanted or what I needed. And I thought, since we're out of the Tool Time set and the surroundings, is there something a little different, something more nuanced with this relationship between the two guys that we can do? And eventually we got there, but it was something that I really had to work for.
Did you get to see the other guys today?
I did. I actually had a storyline, especially when I got pregnant from the world. I was able to kind of intermingle and go to weddings. Your wedding I went to when you got married?
Well, my wedding was the very last show.
Yeah, it was.
Oh no, I had another wedding that I ran out of. Eileen was my girlfriend. Sherry Hersey. The writers figured that she was too cute and too nice to be Al's girlfriend.
So strange, because that's exactly who should have been your girlfriend. Like
she
that.
was.
We had a little thing one time too.
I see smiles.
I'm glad my wife isn't here.
It was on the show, strictly on the show.
We had a smooch. We have a picture of it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, a little smooch.
We're going to open it up to your questions. I just want to know one thing. Debbie, tell us about the Dude Ranch.
So 3 years ago, I created a show called Debbie Dunning's Dude Ranch Roundup. And it was inspired from the imprint and the feeling I had when I went to a dude ranch. And I went to the same dude ranch to talk to the owner. I said, do you think I could create a show about this? And he said, there's hundreds of dude ranches across the U.S. Yes, I'll help you. I'll do whatever it takes. So I've filmed 49 ranches in the past 3 years. We're editing my 3rd season right now. And it's on DirecTV, channel 345, or you can find it on RFD TV or the Cowboy Channel. But
there's a Cowboy Channel?
Yes, it's a Cowboy Channel. Yes.
Oh.
But it's an incredibly shot show. I couldn't do it alone. I've got 2 amazing cameramen and producers also to help me write. And it takes you across the U.S. and it puts your family into a place where you're living this rural kind of Western lifestyle for a week. And the things that happen between you and the family, it's nothing like you're used to. It's been an amazing adventure, and I'm really proud of my show. So if you can't find it or you forget anything I've said, just go Debbie Dunning in YouTube, and you'll get more than you need to know. There's a lot in there.
All right, who has some questions? For each season.
You know, we really did not get hurt very much.
There was one time when Tim cracked his head on his own bus. You know, every car on that show was owned by Tim. And one of the last seasons, we were on this large bus. Remember the bus?
Yeah.
And he comes running into it and forgot that there was like a low-hanging cabinet. Cracked his head. That's about it. That was the medical bill for the whole season. You know, 8 seasons.
Do you remember filming that one where we were Grease Lightning and we were all doing the flips and the dances and Tim's back was out and he was like in the back of the car, in the back of the convertible. He was literally sitting up there with Patricia, Jill, and he was in so much pain and he was in his face and he could barely, like literally barely get out of that car. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember that. What I remember the most is that we were doing this Grease. You know, everybody knows that show and that movie, Grease. And when I show up, I went into hair and I go, give me a pompadour. Give me a 50s pompadour. And I'm in there in the chair for like a half hour and they're doing it. And when I walk out, Pat, who played Jill, and Tim look at me and go, oh man, and then they had to go and get their hair done. And it was another hour and a half before we started to do the scene. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that was great.
I thought I had.
Yeah, it was good hair makeup that week.
Yeah.
Okay, right here.
What was your favorite episode on Two Pound? Both of you.
You know, you don't really have one. When you have so many, there's not just one that sticks out. I mean, there's some that stick out, but not, I don't think there's one. It's like, what's my favorite Dude Ranch? I couldn't tell you. They're all different. And every week you experience something differently. I don't know, maybe you have one.
You know, I have an overall feeling for the time that we were doing Tool Time, because it was always rehearsed first during the day. So when we would show up at 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, we would spend the first 40 minutes just laughing, just joking, Tim talking about the stupid things he did the night before. And it just would get funnier and funnier, and he's a true stand-up. That's what I remember, is just enjoying going to work. And in that kind of environment where everybody's laughing and having a great time, just the creative juices start flowing and the scene just plays out itself. We became way funnier because we were watching somebody who was a stand-up, I think.
I think a lot of people don't know how a sitcom works, and so I'll just take a moment to explain. We come in on Monday, you get the script the weekend before, Friday before when you leave. You would look at it over the weekend. You wouldn't really get too much going because after Monday, you'd sit at a table first thing in the morning, all the actors, the writers behind you, producers, everybody who had something to do with this, we would do a read-through. We would read the entire script as they would take notes. If there was an intended joke that didn't make sense or nobody laughed in that small little family of ours, it was gone. I think the script changed every single day. There was always something that changed. So you always had to be able to kind of go, okay, don't forget that. You just memorize that, it's something new. So then we would put it on its feet, basically, is what we'd all excuse ourselves from that room. The writers would sit in there and they would do the notes. The actors would go back to their rooms, and then we would go down. Usually we'd knock Tool Time out first, usually. And then we'd do all 2 or 3 Tool Times, whatever there was in that script. So we would have our scripts in our hand, go to the set, kind of basically talk about what we were going to do, walk through it a little bit, and then we'd be excused. Sometimes we'd be excused for the whole day, sometimes we'd be excused just for a couple hours till they got the rest of it and come back after lunch. They would do this to every scene. So they would do anything that was in the kitchen, everything that was the living room, the boys, what have you. So they would go through it. Tuesday we'd come back, we would read our script, kind of do the same thing. We didn't do the read-through again. We would just go to the sets. And as soon as we would do our thing full time, then I'd go ride my horse, come back a couple hours later. I don't know what you did. But anyway, so
I could get in 18 holes.
Yeah.
Why Tool Time was always first. Did you ever find that out?
Maybe. Why?
I always thought it was weird, that they would rehearse tool time, and I loved the early morning tool time rehearsal. But it was odd when the scene was at the end of the show, and we would come in first instead of just doing it right before we would do the run through at the end of the day. Well, I found out that Pat didn't want to come in the morning. She had a little more pull than us. Well, she had just had twins.
Oh,
and so she said, well, I'd rather not come in the morning.
But it was smart. It was smart because it gave us the morning to get it over with, go have most of the afternoon, and then come back. So Wednesdays, we would have this run-through. They'd get an audience from Universal Studios, and they'd also bring in a Make-A-Wish child, which was very hard for us because you'd see him on Wednesday, and then you'd get a letter, 2 weeks later that was the best thing that ever happened to him and he's passed. So that was kind of a tough thing. But Wednesday, the jokes would go out there and this little audience was real. And so if it was funny, it would stay. And if it wasn't, it would be rewritten again. Thursday morning, we'd come in, we'd go through dress rehearsal. We'd get it in the can. They'd kind of look at all the places. Thursday evening, would we make up Thursday evenings?
Thursdays were usually something that we would film if it was not on the set. If we had to go on location somewhere, we would film the scene that was at an outside facility usually outside facility.
Yeah, we'd get it in the can. We'd make sure we had it.
And then Friday we would come back. We wouldn't have to be back till noon on Friday. We would do every scene without the audience.
Hair and makeup, everything.
In hair and makeup, and they would film it. And we'd do 2 or 3 run-through of each scene. We would then go away for dinner, then come back with an audience and do the show like a little play, like a half-hour play. And if we had to do something over again, we would, but we already had most of it in the can.
Yeah, so it was a full-time job, but it was a full-time laughing, happy, can't wait to get to work, driving home, thinking about all the little things that we would do, play jokes on each other constantly. Friday nights, we all had dinner together, the cast and crew and everybody. We all went to the commissary and we had dinner together. And after a show on Friday, we would do curtain call, and usually we'd hit up this place, Timmy Nolan's.
Well, Timmy Nolan's for a couple of years until people found out that's where we went.
Then we had to move.
Then it got weirdly crowded.
It's something else now. I just went back to Burbank recently, but I'm just telling you this because this is what we did. This is how much time we spent together. We spent more time together than we really spent with our families, but it was a happy, we fought like brothers and sisters. We loved like family, and it was hard. It was really hard when it ended because we went home and we were like, what now? And, when we thought about it coming back, Tim had got offered Last Man Standing. Fox wanted to pick that up. It was within the same 3 days. And we're still hoping one of these days.
Well, the show was a top 10 show every single season it was on the air. Was there talk at the time of having another season? An 8th season or 9th season?
There was talk.
There was talk.
But there were monetary issues.
We're not talking about those things. Those were private. There was talk. Most of us wanted to do it, but there was a couple issues, and we had problems within the companies that all fed into putting home improvement out there. So Tim just announced it at People's Choice Awards, and he announced it in front of everybody, and he never goes back on what he said. So we kind of knew right then it was going to be over.
Why tool time was always first? Did you ever find that out?
Maybe. Why?
I always thought it was weird, that they would rehearse tool time, and I loved the early morning tool time rehearsal. But it was odd when the scene was at the end of the show, and we would come in first instead of just doing it right before we would do the run through at the end of the day. Well, I found out that Pat didn't want to come in the morning. She had a little more pull than us. Well, she had just had twins.
Oh,
And so she said, well, I'd rather not come in the morning.
But it was smart. It was smart because it gave us the morning to get it over with, go have most of the afternoon, and then come back. So Wednesdays, we would have this run-through. They'd get an audience from Universal Studios, and they'd also bring in a Make-A-Wish child, which was very hard for us because you'd see them on Wednesday, and then you'd get a letter, like, I don't know, 2 weeks later that was the best thing that ever happened to him, and he's passed. So that was kind of a tough thing. But Wednesday, the jokes would go out there, and this little audience was real. And so if it was funny, it would stay, and if it wasn't, it would be rewritten again. Thursday morning, we'd come in, we'd go through dress rehearsal, we'd get it in a can, they'd kind of look at all the places. Thursday evening, would we make up Thursday evenings?
Thursdays were usually something that we would film if it was not on the set. If we had to go on location somewhere, we would film the scene that was at an outside facility usually outside facilities.
Yeah, we'd get it in the can. We'd make sure we had it.
And then Friday we would come back. We wouldn't have to be back till noon on Friday. We would do every scene without the audience.
Hair and makeup, everything.
In hair and makeup, and they would film it. And we'd do 2 or 3 run-throughs of each scene. We would then go away for dinner, then come back with an audience and do the show like a little play, like a half-hour play. And if we had to do something over again, we would, but we already had most of it in the can.
Yeah, so it was a full-time job, but it was a full-time laughing, happy, can't wait to get to work, driving home, thinking about all the little things that we would do, play jokes on each other constantly. Friday nights, we all had dinner together, the cast and crew and everybody. We all went to the commissary and we had dinner together, and after a show on Friday, we would do curtain call, and usually we'd hit up this place, Timmy Nolan's,
well, Timmy Nolan's for a couple of years until people found out that's where we went.
Then we had to move.
Then it got weirdly crowded.
It's something else now. I just went back to Burbank recently, but I'm just telling you this because this is what we did. This is how much time we spent together. We spent more time together than we really spent with our families, but it was a happy, we fought like brothers and sisters. We loved like family, and it was hard. It was really hard when it ended because we went home and we were like, what now? And, when we thought about it coming back, Tim had got offered Last Man Standing. Fox wanted to pick that up. It was within the same 3 days. And we're still hoping one of these days.
Well, the show was a top 10 show every single season it was on the air. Was there talk at the time of having another season? An 8th season or 9th season?
There was talk.
There was talk.
But there were monetary issues.
We're not talking about those. Those were private. There was talk. Most of us wanted to do it, but there was a couple issues, and we had problems within the companies that all fed into putting home improvement out there. So Tim just announced it at People's Choice Awards, and he announced it in front of everybody, and he never goes back on what he said. So we kind of knew right then it was going to be over.
Breakdown for this role on Last Man Standing as an architect. And when I said, oh, well, that sounds like fun, when they called the company back and said that I'd like to do it, they went, oh, gosh, we didn't realize that's Richard. now we have to rewrite it a little bit because we were just putting that out there for anybody. So it wasn't a role that was necessarily written for me. It was something that just kind of happened. So when I showed up, the writers added things like, the first time I see him, when I'm saying goodbye, I go, hey, say hi to the wife and the 3 boys. And Tim goes, I have 3 girls. I go, oh, God, I seem to remember boys. So they added things that were kind of, a funny take on tape. But I got to do 2 episodes. The second episode, I was drunk and got in a fight. Because I had lost my job from the first episode. when I didn't get the job remodeling the big box sports store. And I'm still waiting for that third episode where I get to be that phoenix coming out of the fire, you know, and have turned my life around again, and I'm stopped drinking and I'm not brawling anymore.
Richard, as an actor working with a stand-up, and that was really his first acting job, I think, the chemistry still seems so great between the two of you. Did it just come naturally? Were you learning from each other, him to act and you to get more funny?
Well, I was an older actor at that point. I was 35 years old when I got Home Improvement. If I had been 23, it would have been very different. I would have maybe tried to do too much or tried to, you know, as a young kid, you're thinking, I got to do all this stuff. Well, when I started, I realized I was filling in because I was doing a favor for the producers. I wasn't going to try and be, you know, everything that this character could be. I was just filling in and making sure that Tim was comfortable. Tim wasn't very comfortable the first season or so because he felt, coming from the stand-up world, he felt that Pat was like such a better actor and everybody around him had more acting ability, and he was a little nervous about how he would come off. And it felt like, you know, without getting too weird about it, I just kept encouraging him. I'm just saying, Tim, you're doing great. You know, don't worry about it. I know. That's fine. Go away. I got it. But he really needed to know that he was, you know, he was doing what he needed to do, and that's what I was there for. I mean, when I finished the pilot, and that was all I was going to do, I go home and I go, oh man, this is going to be such a great show. This is a fun show. This is going to be a great show. And I only got to do the pilot. That's okay. Other things will come up. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from Carmen saying that Stephen got another movie. He got another movie. And needed like the first 2 or 3 episodes for me to do. And I went, great, I'm fine. You know, and my wife is pregnant. We're pregnant now with our son Cooper. So as an unemployed actor, I'm going 2, 3 episodes, I'm fine with that. So they liked me because I did all this stuff without lines. I was doing all this world of what Al could be without they didn't have to write me. I was just in the background, you know. But there came a point, like second or third show, where Tim had this joke, you know, hey Al, you think they call it molding because it's been in the refrigerator too long? You know, and that was the big joke. And I just let him have that joke. I wasn't going to try and, you know, step on his lap or anything like that. So I just let him have the joke, and I'm just looking at him. And that happened. And it wasn't something I was, you know, trying to do. I wasn't trying to get the audience to laugh. I was just letting them laugh at his joke. And then just as I was about to say my next line, they laughed because I was just looking at him. And then my next line was, I don't think so, Tim. And there was another laugh. And all that day, the writers would walk by me and go, look, you did yourself a favor there. And I said, I had like 2 lines. I had 2 lines in this episode. And I don't think so, Tim was like one of them. But for the writers, it crystallized the relationship between Tim and Al that they hadn't. Stephen was going to be older, taller. It was a much more Mutt and Jeff kind of a thing. But all of a sudden, they saw what Tim and Al were. And I think it was because the audience were ahead of us. They knew who we were before we did. Because they laughed at relationship kind of things that we weren't really working toward yet because I wasn't going to be there.
Check this guy coming down. All right. Very appropriate. Very appropriate.
Here we go. That looks like one of my shirts. Anybody have questions? Right there, white sweater.
Was Tim Allen ever difficult to work with?
Was he ever difficult to work with?
Every day.
There's just certain things that you don't need to know.
No,
No,
that's
he's great.
not true.
And
He
he was
really
wonderful.
wanted a happy set, don't you?
Yeah, he was someone who lost his father when he was young, and he has 8 brothers and sisters, and so if you knew Tim like we do, he kept the family together. He kept you happy. If you felt, if he felt somebody was unhappy, he'd approach it head on, or he'd ask somebody to have you come talk to him, or he'd ask Sean Shea, our manager, to figure out what it was and then tell him.
Yeah.
I got offered a job on Friends, and it was 9 episodes. And I don't think Tim understood that I never heard until Friday night if I was working on Monday. And I thought, well, I've only got 7 little lines. I mean, I can do both. And he was very upset about it and thought I was going to be leaving. And do you remember this?
No.
Yeah.
This is new to me.
Oh, well, it happened at the Warner Brothers lot. We were on the Bewitched street. Remember the street we did? You guys blew that thing up?
Yeah, we blew up the Bewitched house.
Yeah, and so we were in makeup, and he wouldn't talk to me, and I was like, this is really uncomfortable. And so I really literally took his newspaper and put my hand down, and I have all these like napkins coming out of my neck, because when you get makeup on, you have all these tissues. And I was like, why aren't you taking me serious? I really need to talk to you. He goes, we'll talk about it later. I said, no, I need to talk about it now, because I can't work if you're upset with me. And so we went outside, and he said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I was just a guest starring for the first 2 years. It looked like I was a cast member, but it wasn't. I worked just the same amount of hours, but I got paid less than anybody, and that wasn't really why I was there. But I did need to work, and so I tried to explain that to him, and I said, I don't find out until Friday if I'm working next week, which makes it very difficult for someone like me who auditions for every single job. And he said, well, I'm not telling you what to do, or I don't want to make up your mind. All I'm telling you that if you leave, we're going to get rid of the full-time girl spot. And if you don't take that job, I'll make it up to you. And when I got Home Improvement, I did not have an agent. So that was good for me. But this time, now I'm on Home Improvement, I got a great agent. And I called him and I said, I don't think I can take the job on Friends. And he said, well, then I don't think I can handle you anymore. No. I said, okay. So I negotiated my new job with Home Improvement. So we were filming the 100th episode on Entertainment Tonight, and I was going around interviewing everybody. And Carmen Finestra and Bruce Ferber, I'm like, these are the writers, these are the guys you want to sit next to when you're at the party, because these are the funny, this is who makes us look funny. And they said, we have a question for you, and they did it right on camera. And they asked me if I wanted to be a cast member and actually have my own ticket to the People's Choice Awards, not always going with Earl Hindman as his date. And I'm like, what? So at that moment, I didn't have an agent, and I became a cast member because Tim kept his word, and he kept the family together, and I just thought it was amazing. And if you want to know anything about Tim, his integrity and his word means the most. So we love it.
It's on the Warner Ranch, which is not on the Disney lot. It's in another place in Burbank, but it's all these different streets that are made up to look like New York, Paris, Midwest, or whatever. So the Bewitched house was kind of a Midwest type of thing, and it was just the exterior of the Bewitched house. There's nothing behind it. It's just the exterior, because the interiors were probably on another soundstage. That house was also the house they used in Lethal Weapon, where the toilet flew through the roof when he was sitting on the toilet. Same house. Well, I guess the press for the show put out that we were going to blow up this iconic house, and they called it the Bewitched house. Well, while we're shooting, 4 or 5 cast members from Bewitched show up because they heard we're going to blow up this house that they had been on. So there was like Dr. Bombay, there was Gladys Kravitz, there was like all these people that I grew up watching that were just there to see their house being blown up. Well, we didn't really blow it up. We just blew stuff out the windows. So it looked like we blew it up when we had the gas on and he does the clap on light.
Yeah.
It's like I put a clap on it and like that, and it blew up. The lights ignited the gas in the house or something.
Because that happens.
Exactly.
That could do
That
that.
happens. But that's just a little side story there.
Anybody else? Right here?
Are there any storylines in which the writers would make for your characters?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Of course.
Go ahead.
Well, I think when you, like, I had the smallest role in the whole show, and I did say one time, I said, you know, I come in here, I spend just as much time as everybody else does, and I would like a little bit of a storyline. It's hard because there is a formula that is working so well to try to kind of get in there and try to make yourself a bigger character. Sometimes it doesn't work, but, you know, any actor, when you're going to spend that much time at a particular establishment, you wish you could be working more, saying more than just as every time it is. But, you know, I had to get pregnant and get myself a storyline. And I did. Who knew?
I guess her hands got tired.
I see you waving back there.
Would you actually trust him with power tools?
After all this time, yeah. I mean, I feel like I learned
Not
so
on my
much.
life. And he'll admit that too. He will. Actually, I've seen him with power tools, and it's scary. He has them on his walls. He has the whole set of tool time.
Yeah, he does. We've got our entire set at
Still has
places
his set.
in Hollywood.
In his house?
No. He has a place for his cars. I don't know, he's got about 40 cars.
He bought a house for his cars.
He has all the Wild Hog motorcycles that he had. He also designed a motorcycle. Harley Davidson let him design a motorcycle. So he has one of those. No, Tim's a great guy, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to work on his hot rods. Although he keeps saying he's going to do that with his daughter Katie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he wants to do that at some point, but you know, it's finding the time to do that, I guess.
I will say one time I was watching TV and a commercial came on and you were selling tools on TV. I said, well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I was?
You were doing a commercial for Sears or somebody.
Orchard Hardware,
Orchard Hardware, okay.
which is a Southern California store, so you guys really wouldn't know. I've known Sears bought them a little bit afterwards, and look what happened to Sears.
Who works, you know, you always have food somewhere. Craft service was put right behind the audience of Tool Time. So Richard and I's rooms, Richard, me, and Tim were all three, like, at this side of the hall, and then everybody else was down the hall. And we'd come down our stairway, and Tool Time would be there. So you can imagine being pregnant and walking down to Tool Time, but right before you go around the corner, there's all this food, every single day. And so it was very hard for a girl my size to not gain 52 pounds with my first baby. And I just thought, oh, that's what you do. You eat, right? You're supposed to feed your hunger. Well, do you remember Don Morgan, right? The lighting?
Don Morgan was our lighting designer who won Emmys.
Yeah.
Our show, the only Emmys our show won were for lighting. And the reason for that is because we were a tape show, not a film show. Now the difference between a tape show and a film show, the film show is like Seinfeld or Frasier. Ours is a tape show, so there's a little difference. And the lighting for that, he was so good he made it look like a film show. That's why he always won an Emmy. Sorry.
No, it's good. I like that. No, I like that. That's why we're both here. So Don Morgan says to me one time, he says, are you worried at all about all this weight you're gaining? And I was like, what? And he goes, you know you're going to have to lose it. And it wasn't until that moment that I was like, wait, I thought this is what you're supposed to do. Well, the next couple babies after that, I was a little more careful, but of all the times to get pregnant, I did it in front of all of you. Just so you know.
Yeah, but it got you a better storyline.
Yeah?
You know, there's a payoff for everything.
We have time for just one more, I think. I'm going to ask, what was Bob Vila really like?
Bob was a sweet man. Bob was very humble, very,
As all Bobs are, but go ahead.
What do you think about Bob? Tell me
All
what you
right,
think
Bob
about
Vila. Bob Vila shows up onto the set. He gets a guided tour onto our set before we've even premiered. The show hasn't aired. We're rehearsing, and he like walks around like, so, you're gonna make fun of my job? You know, I'm an icon. I've created this whole home improvement world, and you guys are just gonna make fun of that? We go, no, we're not gonna make fun of it. Promise, we're not gonna make fun of it. You know, and he was like really kind of mad at us for no reason, except that he thought maybe we were gonna step on his territory. Well, you know, he goes away, and Tim and I look at each other and we go, well, he'll never be on the show. And literally, like 3 months later, the producers come down and goes, well, hey, we're going to have Bob Vila on the show. And we went, really? You're going to have Bob Vila on the show? Yeah, we're going to hit him in the head with a 2x6. Okay, that's better. So Bob eventually lightened up, but at first,
he was a good sport
he was very protective of this kind of, you know, thing that he created with this old house, and he thought that we were going to just make it, you know, a laughing stock. But I think we created more appreciation for what those guys do.
And I think it would have been unfair to not have somebody real like that on our show.
Yeah.
All right, we're just about out of time. I want to remind everybody that these guys will be in the Celebrity Room at the Bay Center signing autographs, and I guess tomorrow they're going to have a one-time photo op in costume at Saturday only, so if you want to get involved with that, you certainly can. Let's have a big hand for our guests.